Bruno, I can't hear you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar on BRCGS with one of the food integrity standards that we have been talking with in the last month. And of course, it's a real pleasure and honor to welcome Angela Donovan, the head of standards at BRCGS. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you for this opportunity. Delighted to be here.
So it's one of the, actually, BRCGS is one of the first standards I started working with. Maybe you will tell us when it was, but it was a long time ago.
All right.
I think it was in 1999, maybe.
1998,
Was
probably. Well, 1998 was when it was launched. If that was the food standard issue 1.
Mm-hmm. So maybe you can tell us a bit the background of BRCGS and about the history of it and the development in the last years.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly will. Okay, so yeah, it's actually over 27 years ago that the British Retail Consortium, and the British Retail Consortium, it's a trade association, and it is made up of all the retailers in the United Kingdom, and they set up it was the British Retail Consortium, or BRC, and it's a trade association that still exists, and all of the British retailers are members, and what they set up this working group really and the aim was to improve food safety just in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So what you got to remember is that the British retailers, they have a big heritage in own brand, so private label products, and it's very, very important to them because it's a hugely successful part of their business. And so it's really essential that they protect those private label products. And that's why the British retailers they each established their own methods of demonstrating due diligence. So each retailer had its own audit. And of course, for the poor audit sites, they had audit fatigue very, very quickly. So they got together and decided, right, we better standardize everything. We better actually standardize not just how we do the audit, but let's standardize how we actually apply for food safety assurance. And they also wanted to reduce audit duplication. So that was why they set up the working group back in 1998. Well, 96 actually was when the working group. So that's going back even further, Bruno. Mm-hmm. And then the first BRC audit was the food standard that was published in 1998, and that actually was really successful.
Sorry, Angela. Something I haven't said is that actually you have quite an experience with BRCGS yourself before you joined it, because I haven't sent to our audience that you have. I can't believe that you have 30 years experience in the
Yep.
food business. But I think it's interesting that you have also auditing experience in a very sensitive industry. That we discussed previously, that you've been auditing for some years, almost all around the globe, right?
Yes, yeah. So I've got over 30 years experience. I've worked in high risk food manufacturing, and then I've also worked in a couple of the retailers, and that was when I really got to know auditing, and I was out doing second party audits. And so not only was I doing food audits, I was doing non-food audits, because at the time I was working for Woolworths, and they sold food and non-food, and I was auditing everything from food factories here in the UK, like fresh sandwiches, one week, and then the next week I could be out in China auditing maybe a fireworks factory, or in Vietnam at a bicycle factory, or Christmas tree factory, or clothing factory. So I've got quite a lot of experience auditing right across the food and non-food. Mm-hmm. And actually, I was part of the technical working group for food safety issue 2. And I was also part of the working group for the for consumer products issue 1. Mm-hmm. So BRC or BRCGS has been a big part. I grew up with it basically in my career, because it's been a big part of what I've done, and I've really relied very heavily on it in my career within quality assurance and product safety.
So we can see that we have that BRCGS is an international standard because we have people joining from Mozambique,
Oh,
from
wow.
Paris, from Kenya, from Italy, from
Yeah.
Tanzania, from India, from South Africa. So it's
Wow.
quite an
Fabulous. Great to have them. Great to have them here.
international audience. And one thing also that strikes me, you said it yourself. You started talking about the history and about the BRC,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of people still think that BRCGS means a British Retail Consortium, and
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
the case, right?
So actually, and then that is our heritage. It's very much was a British heritage, and it was with the British retailers. But we are no longer part of the British Retail Consortium. Actually, we now belong to a company called LGC,
Mhm.
which LGC stands for Laboratory of Government Chemists. But it's a huge organization, a huge global organization, and actually. They're involved very much in the diagnostic, in the science, developing science tools, providing diagnostic tools for the pharmaceutical industry, for research, government, all sorts of different kind of laboratory testing and research. And we were bought by them in 2016, I think, and so we're kind of very much now part of the LGC family. But
Mhm.
and so we started moving away from BRC, but the BRC was such a big part of our brand that we decided to keep the acronym. Uh,
Mhm.
but now BRC stands for Brand Reputation Compliance Global Standards. So we are now BRCGS. Um, and it's great when people remember that is our actual name.
Yeah, so it's all about compliance, right? And
All about compliance to food safety, product safety, because of course we don't just do food anymore, we do many other products. But yeah, all about food safety and really setting the benchmark for best practice in food production. It is that's where it started, and it's each year we're always developing and they're always evolving, but we're always making them better, making them current, because of course standards are getting more rigorous, more demanding, because the consumers want more, so we have to keep it current, and so we're always looking at updating it.
okay, great. And so, if we look a bit at the timeline of this development that you started to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
tell us about what happened in the last is it
Yeah.
20,
20,
30
26, 27 years.
years?
Yeah, so of course, like I said, we started with the British Retail Consortium in 1996, and we launched the first standard in 1998, and that was the food safety standard. And that really set the benchmark, I think, globally for what good looks like for safe food production. And of course, since then we've evolved significantly. We're now a certification provider organization, so we have all of these standards that are used globally. We can talk a little bit later about how we go about doing that. But we were the very first standard to be GFSI recognized. So in 2000, we were the first food standard globally to meet the benchmark for GFSI. And then we continue to develop lots more standards since then. Now, in that timeline, you can see just the dates of when we launched new standards. So, of course, in 1998, we launched food safety issue 1. We're now on issue 9. So we've continued to develop new standards every 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, we have issued a BRCGS packaging standard, very
Mhm.
much focused for kind of the food, the beverage, and the consumer products industries, and it really just covers, the manufacturing of packaging materials and all about the hygiene and the safety and the quality. And then in 2003, I was actually, like I said, I was involved in writing the consumer product standard. So that was at a time when I worked in Woolworths, so very much managing general merchandise. And this was a perfect standard at the time for, it meant I didn't have to go all over the world auditing those bicycle factories or those, the clothing factories. So it's all about non-food, or some people call it near food, but it covers personal care, cosmetics, household products, general merchandise. And it again just focuses on that same formula of product safety, quality, legal compliance for the consumer goods.
Mhm.
And then it was in 2006 we designed or we published a standard for storage and distribution, all
Mhm.
about the storage, the distribution, the transport for products. Again, making sure that you can develop a safe product, so you develop a safe food, but you also want to make sure that it's stored and it's distributed in a safe manner. So it's about making sure that the temperature control is handled correctly, it's handled safely, and we developed all of these best practices for that. And within that, we also now we've developed, there's more modules to that, like e-commerce, wholesale, and so on. So that whole logistics supply chain is covered in that one.
Mhm.
And then in 2014, we launched our first agents and broker standard. So again, a key actor in the supply chain is those agents and brokers, and making sure that they manage their sourcing and the traceability and the risk assessment of the products that they're selling. And then in about 2016, we were bought by LGC. And in 27, and that was when we changed our name to BRCGS on brand reputation compliance. And then in 2017, we were actually the first to launch something about food safety culture.
Mhm.
And following that, we actually then launched what we call BRCGS Start, and that was in 2018. And we can talk a little bit about that later, but it was really a very simplified and a reduced scope for those smaller businesses, because we recognize as a global brand that we have a global audience, we've got a global stakeholders, and we need to meet their needs. And so that Start was for those smaller, less mature quality systems.
This
And
starts
so,
this term starts, sorry, standard. It's sort of step by step, right? Implementation of food
yeah,
safety.
so it's got a basic, it's about getting you on that journey to get to food safety, to the
Okay.
ultimate big standards, to the food 9 now. So you can start on small steps and get the basics right, and then you can get kind of into an intermediate level, and then you go up to then the kind of the full BRCGS food safety standard.
Very well.
Um,
Yeah.
and then actually it was in 2018 we acquired a company called Allergen Control Group in Canada, and they had a
Mhm.
gluten-free standard. So what we did was we took that standard and we made it our own, and
Mhm.
that's specifically just for manufacturing sites that what we do is we make sure that the site itself is gluten-free. So when we
Mhm.
very much have the approach, you know, you make sure there's no gluten at all ever in the products or in the factory. So kind of, you got to make it clean, you got to stay clean. So we're not introducing any gluten at any point. And that's been really successful with the trade associations. So like the AOECS here in
Mhm.
Europe, and the Canadian Celiac Association, and the Beyond Celiac in the North America. So it's been really popular with sites there. Um, and then in 2019, we developed again, just enhancing and making sure that we cover all the supply chain. Was this We developed and launched this ethical trade and responsible sourcing standard, and
Okay.
that really is good. It's so it's so relevant now, and it
Yeah.
goes beyond product safety and quality, and it's about addressing those social and ethical aspects of the supply chain.
So
And yeah,
the first step in corporate social responsibility, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about those labor practices, working conditions, responsible sourcing, and all of that, because it's very important, very, very topical now. And then also in 2020, we launched a plant-based standard. So we didn't call it vegan, we didn't call it vegetarian, it's plant-based, okay? And that's done deliberately. And again, proving more and more popular recently because, of course, of the lifestyle. A lot of people want want to know that the sites that they're sourcing their products from, whether it's vegetarian, whether it's vegan, that actually it is meeting that plant-based standard. So making sure there is no chances of any cross-contamination of animal products.
Mhm.
And that's popular. I mean, and with all of those developments, of course, all of those we're like I said, we're reviewing them every 3 to 4, 5 years. So it's not like we just develop it once and that. So it's we're constantly evolving. We're also developing additional modules, like we've got modules for global gap, for meat supply chain assurance, for FISMA, for glass production. So it's we're constantly evolving. And then you can see that we've also got an ESG lead tool. So for those sites who who kind of want to do a little bit of ESG or sustainability, we've got a little tool there to help them on their journey with that as well.
Mhm. So actually, we've clarified that BRC is not about British Retail Consortium anymore.
Not at
But
all. We are very, very
quite
much a
international.
global company. And yes, and we're, like I said, we're recognized by the IAF. So we're fully accredited since 2022. And, a lot of our schemes are accredited to IAF. Also, 4 of our standards, not just the food safety standard, are benchmarked to GFSI. So we've got food safety, packaging, storage and distribution agents and brokers. And our ethical standard was the first one to be benchmarked to SSCI, which
The
is
equivalent of
the
GFS.
equivalent of GFSI.
Yeah, of course.
And also we have earned recognition with the Dutch NVWA, the Dutch authority, and the Swedish authority as well. So like we are working with them and they recognize our standards as something to help them risk assess their I guess food business or organizations in their local areas.
You were mentioning when we prepared this webinar that one of the key figures for you is the sales number,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, something we're very proud of. Yeah, when we actually try to estimate how much of a global influence do we have,
Mhm.
and what we're very proud of is that we believe we are responsible for the safety of over $800 billion worth of products globally. And that's quite significant when you think, from those 33,000 certificated sites that we
Mhm.
have in those 130 countries. Yeah, over $800 billion worth of product we are responsible for making safer for the consumer. So that's quite significant.
And can you tell us a bit, because I think it's as I say, as we have said, it's not British anymore. Can you tell us, sorry, a bit about the governance? So how you mentioned that you're changing the standards, and I think that the people that are certified according to the different standard, they always complain that it's always too frequent. But
Yeah, yeah.
there are of course some explanations and reasons why you evolve those standards. But I think it's also important to share how international the governance of BRCGS is, and who are the people who are um, managing this change and controlling this change.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Bruno. We're always continually revising and updating the standards, and that is very much about staying aligned to the industry and to the advancements and any regulatory changes or just evolving consumer expectations. And it's very important that we meet our specifiers requirements. And yes, people can complain, but also it's part of a GFSI requirement that we have to review the standards every 3 years. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to relaunch a new standard, but generally 3 years on, things have changed quite a lot because it's so fast moving. But what we do have is, we don't just make it up. We have a very, very rigorous governance. Not only we are operated by, we have a board at BRCGS, we have a management team, and the organization, we kind of receive a lot of strategic and technical input from what we call our International Advisory Board, and they're represented. We've got retailers, food service companies, manufacturers from all around the globe involved in those 3 different international advisory boards. So we've got one in the Americas, one in Europe, and we do have one in the APAC region, which we're trying to get back up and running again. So that's the International Advisory Board, and we meet with them regularly to just to get input from them, and they advise us on what our direction should be, and they make sure that we're delivering what we say we will deliver. But part of that also, we have what we call a technical advisory committee. And we have a technical advisory committee for each standard. So if you imagine, we have now got 8 or 9 active standards. And so we have a technical advisory committee for each of those. And again, that's it's very strictly governed. And we make sure that we have the right number of committee members that represent each sector and geography. So it's a very set, defined kind of set of terms of reference. Um, they're given a set of rules. They have to attend so many meetings, but within that we have industry experts, all sorts of professionals from the different industries. We have retailers, of course, because of our heritage in British retail, we're very much focused on the needs of the retailers. We also have the manufacturers and producers in that technical advisory committee. We have to have their expertise because ultimately they're the ones that we're writing the standard for. But of course, we also need to have certification bodies because they're
Mhm.
going to deliver the standard. We cannot do it without them. We also need accreditation bodies, so we have them within the technical advisory committee, and we have government regulators, we have trade associations or consumer groups, and then any other technical committees that we feel that need to be represented. So
Mhm.
we make sure that we have a huge range of global partners in those technical advisory committee, and we don't make decisions on our own. The decisions are made by the technical advisory committee, and once the committee have decided that the standard is needs an update,
Mhm.
then we will cease the technical advisory committee and we create a technical working group. And then again, we go through that whole process again of finding the right people. And, they commit to a lot of work and they really help us write the standard. And we go through each clause by clause to make sure that we we make sure that each clause is updated or if necessary, updated and relevant.
Mhm. If I am
So
the quality manager of a small plant in France or in Bolivia or in Taiwan, uh,
mhm.
can I have an influence on the BRC GS standards?
You can absolutely have an influence. And there's several ways to do that. So first of all, like I said, we within the technical advisory committees, we have trade associations. So
Mhm.
you might be a member of a trade association and you can use your voice to influence that trade association to bring your opinion into the technical advisory committee. The other way that you can, if you're not part of a trade association, and of course not everybody can afford that, is before we start the rewrite of any standard, what we do is we put it out to the public, and we put a public consultation out, and we just put it on our website or put it on LinkedIn, and we say we're about to start the rewrite of the standard. We would love your feedback, so please tell us what you think and we will collate all of that from everybody. So, for example, we will get hundreds and hundreds of different feedback, and we take each and every single one of those and we consider it individually to understand whether it's relevant or not at this stage. And we take that then, to the technical working group. They see all of that, and we debate and we discuss every single one to consider it, and
Mhm.
then we decide whether it's going to impact or change the standard or not, whether it's going to add value. And then once we have rewritten the standard before we publish it, we also goes to public consultation again. So you've seen the before and now you're seeing the after. And again, we ask for public input. And so, for example, on the I guess the most recent one was food safety issue 9. We'd have nearly 1,000 individual feedback.
Mhm.
So again, that's a lot of work for the technical group to go through, review, and make sure that that is all considered in the rewrite.
So I think it's important to highlight this because people may complain about this sort of non-transparent process, but actually it is, and you can. I think it's important to notice that we can raise the voice,
Yeah,
especially particularly when you're a user of the standard, but also externally if there's anything that you want to add to it. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, and also actually, throughout the whole life of the standard, I mean, I've already got my file for food
Mhm.
safety issue 10. So I've got my file already and I'm collecting feedback and we're taking all of the frequently asked questions and we're taking any feedback regardless of whether it's from the technical advisory committee, just directly into our inquiries inbox, anything back from specifiers, what are they saying? Because, we and we do our best to launch the perfect standard.
Mhm.
But sometimes when we launch, there might be a new clause in there that's written in a way that as could be a little bit confusing, especially if it's translated. Because you've got to remember, the standards are written in English, and then we translate them into about, I don't know, 10 or 50, 13 languages.
Mhm.
And, sometimes things can get lost in translation. So what
Yeah.
we do is we take that feedback, and it might be then we have to re-look at the wording of a clause because it's either just, it's causing ambiguity, and we don't always get it right. We're human. So,
Of
but we
course.
do consider, we do make sure that when we are rewriting it, that a standard, we've got auditors and certification bodies involved as well. And we're very, very focused on, is that auditable? That clause
Mhm.
auditable? And if it's not, we will go back and rewrite it. We spend hours debating those little words. Is it a must or a should or a shall or an and or an or? So
Every word counts, right?
every word counts. Absolutely.
And just for, I think, for the audience, we have to say that the fact that you have already a file called BRCGS Food number 10, version 10, doesn't mean that we are going to have version 10 in 2024.
No, oh, absolutely not. Oh, goodness me, no, no.
Every
No, no. Again, like I said, we will try and,
every three
we'll
years.
review it. There will be a plan. We try and make a roadmap of when we will rewrite standards. It doesn't always work because, we're kind of also looking at, packaging materials now, or, people might say, well, storage and distribution is due a review. Yes, but we're also waiting for GFSI and their benchmark, because that is a huge impact and one of the reasons why we might rewrite a standard. So we're kind of waiting for all of that. But yeah, just because I've started the file, I'm just collating all that
No,
feedback.
no, it's
It's,
just
it's going to happen. Yeah, don't, crikey, I'll have a heart attack. So, so yeah, and
okay. That's
so I
good.
was just going to say, and maybe we can talk about it later. Is more you know the amount of work that goes into writing a standard. People just see it as one standard, but we can talk about it later. Probably what goes on behind the writing of a standard.
After, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the version
Yeah,
9 and what it meant in
yeah.
terms of changes and rewriting. I had a question about what makes, for you, in your view, BRCGS different from other standards. So what would you point out as the USP, as people say, of
Yeah.
BRCGS?
Okay. Well, I think well, first and foremost, we're very retailer driven. Our origin was we were created by the retailers in the UK, and so that's where our roots are. And so we're very tied to the retail industry, and so it's very retail focused and tailored to their needs. And I think because of that, that has kind of led us to this whole global recognition, because those retailers, they recognize how good the standard is, and it meets their needs, and so that has kind of made it go global. And so we are very global, and because we continue to develop it, and not just the food standard, but we do the entire food supply chain. So we're
Mhm.
very versatile, so it's not just about the food industry, it's beyond the food industry. And we have a huge number of endorsements from many of the major retailers, both in the UK and globally, and who really just, they see us as their preferred choice of certification. But also we have a huge network of accredited of CB. So we have about 77 certification bodies, and we can talk about, like I'll talk about later, about how we go about, how rigorous we are about making sure that we have competent auditors and consistent audit practices.
Mhm.
And then, like we said, yes, we're continually improving. Every 3 to 5 years, we're rewriting, updating the standard. And like I said, it's not just about food, but we've got the ethical trade responsible sourcing standard that's also makes us different. But one of the key areas, I guess, where we're different is our compliance. So we have this really amazing compliance program that is headed up by Karen Betts. She does a fantastic job, her and her team, on managing the compliance. And it's kind of based around these 5 pillars of compliance. And it's, like I said, it's a real integral part of what we do, and part of our certification process. And it's something we're really proud of. And like I said, it really helps, making sure that the compliance of the certification bodies meet our requirements. It's really robust. I mean, we KPI the CBs right to the nth degree. and we really, give them star rating, and we really make sure that they are giving the best possible service to the sites. So like I said, we're very, very strict on that. We do a lot of standardization of auditing practices. So we make sure that regardless of where the audit takes place in the world, it's done in the same way. So we have lots of tools lots of training for our auditors. We do lots of calibration of the auditors. We tell them what good looks like when it comes to an audit report, and all of that. We do monitoring of them. We do compliance checks. We do, we'll go on site and we'll check, if we get a complaint about an auditor, or if we get a complaint about maybe from a site that is not very good, or they weren't happy with the audit done, we will go in and we've got our own independent auditors, and we'll do a compliance check. And also, other areas of where we're different, we've got this Tell BRCGS, so this whistleblower process, and that's where sites or specifiers can tell us what they're seeing when they visit a site. And just one of the other things there, actually, you've got on the screen is this performance enhancement. So that's like our training department, and we really offer an amazing service for, can be for anybody, but particularly for certificated sites, if they want their technical managers or any of their team to be trained on the standard or on other modules. They could go through our professional development program and become BRCGS professionals. And it's a fantastic program. And actually, I've been going through it myself and learning, about the different standards, the different, I guess, modules, whether it's HACCP or vulnerability or whatever. And then you can also go further and learn about leadership skills, or really the competency skills that are important for anybody on a site who has to influence and has to, have leadership roles. So
it helps to develop the ecosystem, right, around the standards and the different stakeholders, auditors, food safety professional, trainers, and so on.
Yeah. And then also on top of that, then we have this, what we call our directory. So our digital offering. And we're very proud of our directory. And that's kind of adds to our transparency, I guess, our transparency and accessibility. Every audit is available. So if you want to make sure, what we've done is we've developed a platform so that you can go there's one place you go to make sure that the certificate that your site is giving you is actually authentic. So everything that's on our platform, on our directory, it's an authentic certificate. So if it's withdrawn, you won't see it. These are all publicly available on the approval of the site. So we don't show something that if the site doesn't want it public, we will not show it publicly. So there's a lot of governance and GDPR rules around that. But the directory holds every single certificate, and we track it. We make sure it's relevant. We make sure it's still compliant, it hasn't expired, and so on. So the directory offers a huge amount of insight also into the number of non-conformances we get. And there's a fantastic tool there that people can access to monitor and trend non-conformances. So yeah, lots of great tools there. And that's why we're the best, Bruno.
Say that. Okay, then of course a lot of people your main standard is the BRCGS food safety, right? Can you tell us about so it was launched more than one
August 2022 we launched the food safety. So we can just talk through the timeline. So the standard was launched in August 2022, and with that we launched the not just the standard itself, but we always launch a key changes document. We try and make it as clear as possible just for sites what are the changes, what are the real big changes to the standard. And then we also launched the interpretation guideline, and the standard, like I said, is in quite a few languages, as is the checklist. So we can translate the checklist so sites can actually see it. So it's not just English, but also once it goes live, then beyond the launch date, we do a whole lot of webinars and we do road shows, and we really promote and explain the standard. And then beyond that, once it's always 6 months between the standard launching or being published and the go live of the audits, we have 6 months where this where the sites have 6 months to get trained, to get familiar with the standard, auditors to get trained, certification bodies to get it all set up on their system. So you need at least 6 months to get that kind of embedded. And then once we started the first audits in February 2023. And with that, we've also, we're starting to gather the feedback, and we're getting inquiries about it naturally. And we've also, listening to the voice of our customers, we get a lot of inquiries about certain aspects of the standard. And and instead of writing, and we have tons of guidelines, and we can talk about those later. But one of the things we did was we actually set up these Ask the Expert kind of live webinars like this, where we give you experts globally in the industry to talk about a specific topic. So for example, today, when we'll talk about later the non-conformances, but one of the top non-conformances is linked to hygiene and equipment maintenance. And so today we had an Ask the Expert session on that very topic. We've done Ask the Expert sessions on listeria or on environmental monitoring or, culture or whatever. So they've been fantastic. And again, this is just free of charge for anyone to access them. They're on our website. They're actively...
and also the replay, you can watch it live, but you can also register and look at the replays.
Yeah, and they're on LinkedIn. So also, if you're not sure about it, and then after the launch again, we're continuing to develop lots of different documents. So there's all these additional guidelines that we offer, and FAQs, and we do some information for audit duration calculator, because that's a very kind of important one. People want to know how long will an audit take, and I can tell you it's such a complicated discussion and debate that we have with all of the stakeholders when we're trying to establish what is a reasonable audit duration. So lots of fun and games with that one.
Yeah, can imagine. It's audit duration is a topic per se, I think.
Yes. Oh, yes. We talk all day on that one.
Is it too much, or is it too?
Is it too little? Yeah.
Too long or too little? Is it too long or too short? Right. So now it's around what is 6 months? More than 6 months of
7 or 8, probably 8 or 9 months since February. So we have we've got over 10,000 certificated sites at the moment on Food 9, and what we've said there, about 73,000 opportunities for improvement. That's a nice way of saying non-conformances, but and that's in 110 countries globally. And I guess the most of them, our top countries are usually Italy, China, and the UK. And also, just what's interesting is 30% of those have been unannounced as part of the 1 in 3 unannounced. So sites are getting used to that GFSI requirement of they have to have one unannounced audit in a 3-year period.
Right. And what are the documents? You said here there are a lot of documents which have been published, right?
Yeah, because again, just to reiterate, I was amazed when I joined BRCGS, the going through the rewrite of a standard, and people just think, oh, it's just one standard, but actually it's not. Like I already said, not only is it the interpretation guideline and the key changes, which are the biggies that you launch on the day that when you go public, but we also do a huge amount of other updating of documents as well. So there you can see the category guidelines for raw red meat. There's one for raw poultry. There's one for understanding production risk zones, for fresh produce, for a guide to lighting best practice. All of these are also going on in the background. Now, we don't do all of these ourselves, because we end up going out to industry and asking experts to help us, to write these. So we tend to ask them for help, simply because they're the experts. We don't know about air quality. We're not that, our expertise is not that broad. So we go out and people help us write those documents, and those are all free to, if you're a certificated site, you have this is all free for you. So it's on our platform called Participate, and that's a library of documents. So if you're a certificated site, you get all of this free. So once you've got done your audit, it's kind of included in your in your cost. If you're one of the main 4, so if you're food standard, you will get access to all of these.
Okay. And if you are not, then you have to pay,
You
right?
can pay, yeah, you can pay. I mean, the standard itself, you just download for free as a
Yeah.
PDF anyway. You can get it free. If you
But
want to buy any of those guidelines, they're all, you can just buy them. You can go to our bookstore and buy them on our website.
okay, great. And so, what are the results? Can we talk a bit about the result, or what you know about this
Yeah,
version 9? Is it a revolution? Does it change a lot? Oh,
well, first of all, we've really only got probably around 5 or 6 months worth of data, and it's a little bit early yet to be saying kind of what are the really big trends, because we've kind of said we've got about 40% of site data available, because what we got to remember is that the audit report is not uploaded onto our platform, or doesn't have to be until 49 days after the audit. So we're kind of a couple of months behind before we get the data. But that's good. So we've got 40% of those sites, they've submitted their data onto the directory. And so we've had a little bit of a look. But to give a real, I guess, a real proper, insight, we'd have to have at least 50% of sites to have uploaded their data for it to be meaningful. So what we've got here is, we've got, I just advise, don't, just take it at face value. It's, or it's, you can use it, but it's not that accurate. It's very, very limited. But so this is for the major, the major non-conformances, the top sort of 3 here that we're seeing. And bearing in mind, major non-conformances, they're only a proportion of the total number of NCs. So the first major non-conformance is actually about audit due dates. So you got to remember, sites, they're responsible for making sure that the audit takes place before it expires.
Yeah.
And it could be sometimes that maybe sites are preventing the audit from taking place for whatever reason. It could be a simple admin. They haven't submitted the correct paperwork, but something is preventing the certification body from either organizing that audit, and so it's very much up to the site. You've got to take responsibility and make sure it happens. So so that's the top one. Now it could be as brutal as the auditor turns up and they're not allowed into production within the 30 minutes, after 30 minutes. So in that case, you're going to get an NC. So that's the first one so far. The next one then, so, and just actually what's interesting in that one is the clause wording, it hasn't changed. So it is still,
the same. It's the same as it could be in a previous version, right? It's not related to the new clause.
And then the second one, again, this clause wording is unchanged. And this is just, the premises and equipment shall be maintained in a clean and hygienic condition. And just auditors are seeing, I guess, a whole range of conditions on the sites, and it's a very common non-conformance. It happens. This is our top non-conformances all the time. So I guess it's very difficult for a site to have everything pristine all the time. So, and so the auditors are seeing, I guess, a range of different conditions, but it's obviously enough for them to consider it to be a major. And then the third one is just pests present on site. So again, the wording is unchanged, and there's obviously some sort of evidence of pests being found. With the auditors, they've got to make a judgment: is this a serious enough risk to the safety of the product, or is it a substantive failure to the clause? And of course, you got to remember that all these clauses are checked by the certification reviewer to make sure it's consistent by all auditors. So this is what we're seeing so far.
In majors and in minors also.
And then minors, again, the same. Obviously it's the same watch out. We don't have very much information, and it's very similar in minor non-conformances as well. So premises and equipment. And again, like I said, the clause wording not changed. But the second one then is 4911, which is all about storage and handling of non-food chemicals. Now, and again, wording hasn't been changed. This is where processes shall be in place to manage the use the
Mhm.
storage and the handling of non-food chemicals and to prevent chemical contamination. Now, it
Mhm.
could be as simple as locked, is the
Yeah,
storage cupboard not locked? Is it being left open? Is it that quite often maybe, the site they're decanting from a bulk container and that smaller container then is not labeled correctly? I mean, it
mhm.
still seems to be the case. We don't know for sure, but we can't really give much further insight at this stage. But that's sort of what we're seeing.
And the
Um,
last one is, which is the only one actually, which was related to a big change in the standard, because there was all these parts about design, hygienic
yeah,
design of equipment, right?
yeah. So this was a new additional risk-based sort of design and construction of equipment that is added. And that's really driving some of the non-conformances. But we'd expect this every time we bring in a new or a changed clause. Quite often that NC kind of rises to the top, kind of quite high
Mhm.
up. But then typically what we see is that after the new clause has been introduced, the sites get used to it and they get familiar with it, and then actually kind of drops off. So I don't see this being a big issue in the future. It's probably just because we've changed the wording and sites are kind of going, oh, what does this mean? And they just haven't quite got it. So yeah, so that's really it. We don't have any. Sorry, I can't share any huge,
Yeah, of course.
any huge
No,
exciting news, but that's where we are.
okay, great. And so you're going to publish some new documents you shared with us, right?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So obviously, we always said do publish our frequently asked questions, and again, we can't do that at the launch date of a new standard because we don't have the
Of
questions.
course, of course.
So we need to wait. So we're going to be having an issue 9 FAQs coming up quite soon. And then like I said, we're constantly looking at what other guidance can we give. So we're working on understanding the preventive action and root cause analysis. We've got a category guideline for wine coming
I'm
up.
interested in this one.
Yeah,
I'm afraid. I'm
I
afraid.
didn't write that one, Bruno. So I'm afraid, yeah, I'm not a wine expert, I'm afraid. Um, One thing that's also new and we're very excited about is we have, for the first time, we're launching an interpretation guideline for START issue 2.
Okay.
Now, historically, the START, we didn't have an interpretation guideline, so we just sort of asked the sites to use the Food 9 interpretation guideline, but it's too detailed. So what
Mhm.
we've done is we've again listened to what our stakeholders want, and we have spent an awful lot, long time writing the interpretation guideline, and we've come kind of at a slightly different approach. We've kind of made it simpler to understand. We've put in quick tips. So what are the quick tips to kind of
Mhm.
address the requirement? And we've also kind of put in there, you know, what we think the auditor is going to be looking for. So again, just a little bit of more guidance on what the site needs to do, because we're very conscious that these sites don't necessarily have very mature quality management systems. They're not huge sites. So there could be, we're talking in some sites here might have 10 people or 5 people.
Mhm.
So we've got to keep it simple, and that's what we've done.
Mhm. And then in 2024, there was also a lot of coming,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So,
we're busy. We're busy writing a whole load more. This is our plan. So, this is, best intention. This is what we're working towards. I can't
there are
guarantee.
topics, of course, which are important. I mean, pest management, product
Yeah,
recall. I guess
we
it's
just,
also review from older, because these guidelines existed, right, in the
yeah,
past, and they're just adapted probably to the
yeah,
new.
they're being updated, but also, yeah, just things change because we don't necessarily update them every single time we launch a new
Oh,
standard. So some of them might be from food 8 or goodness me, even food 7. So yeah, we're trying to update them and just not only just make them related to food, because some of those are not just food focused. If you look
of
at, complaint handling, for example, even root cause analysis, that can go right across all the standards. So we're also trying to be mindful that
of
we need
the
to
range
make
of
these guidelines relevant to our full audience, not just our food audience.
Mhm. Maybe if you could share a little bit more details, as we said, about the START program. So, what are the main steps that are in this program?
Oh, right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, we kind of launched this 2018 after Food 8, and now we've relooked at it and launched issue 2 of Start earlier this year. And what we've done is, again, this is meant to be a journey, kind of
Mhm.
like a roadmap for those sites who aren't ready yet for food safety issue 9 for the full standard. So what we've created is a standard that is more basic. I mean, it does cover the the legality and the HACCP, but it's kind of like a stepping stone with the basic requirements first, just that first stepping stone, helping building compliance and the real fundamentals and kind of just the main high risk stuff. It's very basic. And then you can start there and then you can work up into the intermediate level. And that's just got a bit more focused on quality and safety. Well, yeah, quality and authenticity. And that will then help you towards getting into the full standard, which is GFSI benchmarked. So START is not GFSI benchmarked, but you can get certificate to it. You will get your report. And it really it's for those sites, it helps them demonstrate their commitment to their customers that they are on their journey to developing a really, really robust quality management.
This development standard, they can be aware, of course, as you say, to show commitment and to take more time. I guess that some retailers accept that as a commitment to be
Yes.
certified in 2 to 3 years. Can we say that, or is it?
Yeah, what we're finding is there's about a 33% or 30% conversion to Food 9. So some sites that they're just happy to stay here and that's all they need, and that's great. But what we do find is that at least 30% are then going through the journey and getting to the food standard after about 2 or 3 years maybe. So
because at the intermediate level you are at around 50% of the food.
Yeah, and that's it. So what we've kind of, to explain it there, the START basic, it covers around 36% of the kind of standard. It really focuses on legislation. We've really ramped up the kind of codex compliant HACCP, traceability, allergen management, because it doesn't matter what kind of a site you are. These are fundamental. You need these. You cannot produce safe food without this in place. And you have to be legal. You have to have allergen management. You have to have, a compliant HACCP. These are fundamental. So that's what we covered. And then the intermediate, we've gone into a lot more detail about, further HACCP, further food safety management systems, more documents, expect more from them, that sort of thing. And then,
the full standard.
And then you go on into the full standard. Yeah. But we've got guidance on that. And actually, what we've also got is we have created, like I said, the interpretation guideline coming up soon. And then we've also got training specifically for the auditors, because this is not the same as auditing a Food 9 site. So we're training the auditors on this is what to expect. I mean, they will all be qualified to Food 9 auditors. They'll all be qualified auditors, but it's more just
to adapt the way to audit and what the requirements, right, to the process of improvement behind the...
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there will be training courses for sites coming up soon. And then eventually we also want to create this implementation pack just for those sites who really need help on, what does a template for, say, metal detection look like, for those sites who really need help. So some additional tools that we're planning to develop.
Okay. Great. And so what are the new standards coming? Is there what's on the shelf?
We're always building, we're always working. We never stop, Bruno. So like I said, earlier this year, we did a little revamp, of our ethical trade responsible sourcing. So it wasn't a full revamp, but we've called it 2.1. We don't normally do a 0.1. Normally we have position statements for other standards. But in this case, we were changing it from accreditation from 17021 to 17065. And so it was just kind of a minor change. So we've updated that, and that's now gone live, and that's great. We are in the process of looking at our gluten-free. So it used to be called the gluten-free certification program. So it's now going to be called Global Standard Gluten-Free, and that will be issue 4, and that's going to be launched February next year. And then the next biggie, the next GFSI one, is packaging materials. And that one we'll be starting very soon, going out to that first public consultation and getting a working group together on that. And it's generally a 12-month process. So probably fall next year kind of
Mhm.
autumn next year, we'll have a look out for that one. But I'm sure we'll have it all over LinkedIn and all over our website, so everybody will know.
Yeah, we can do a webinar about it
We
together.
certainly can. We certainly can. Yeah.
I have a question because you mentioned ethical trade and responsible sourcing as a stepstone of corporate social responsibility. We've seen that the other big standards, in particular FSC 2000, IFS, have integrated some aspects of sustainability. So the policy of the sustainability included in the policy for IFS, and the food waste and loss
Yeah.
in FSC 22000. Can we expect in the future to have some integration of sustainability within the food safety standard, or what's the view of BRCGS in this case? For
Well,
this?
that's a really good question. And actually, we did debate this a lot when we were writing Food 9. And bear in mind, we were writing Food 9 2 years ago. So
Mhm,
we were in the working group, and we did a big debate with the team, the technical working group. Do we or do we not include reference to sustainability and food waste? And in the end, after a lot of debate, we decided that actually we just wanted to maintain our focus on food safety, quality, kind of authenticity, legality. Um, there are clauses in there about managing food waste to make sure that it doesn't contaminate the product, rework and that sort of thing. But we just decided at that time
mhm,
to focus on food safety. I mean, we ourselves, we have an ESG lead tool. So if sites
mhm,
want to do a check, they've got that. And then we've also got the ethical trade. So we have little aspects of it there. But at the moment, at that time, the decision
mhm,
was to not include it. And they felt it would be a little bit of a distraction. I totally get there is a huge overlap.
mhm.
And, we'll see what Food 10 says, but it very much, it's up to the working group to decide what's right.
Of course, depending on the context and the changes, right?
Yeah.
So we are open to questions from the audience. If you have a question, but it's time to write it, and we will see if we can handle it. I have another one for you, Angela, a tough one. Which is about, as you know, and you're one of the first to know, as a standard owner representative, there is a huge lack of auditors.
Mm.
There is a long process of qualification. There are also, on the other hand, some tools that are, you hear more and more about, of course, remote auditing technology. Now it's artificial intelligence. Uh, do you think how do you think about this? So what can we do basically to improve the situation of this lack of auditors?
Wow. I think that's the holy grail question, Bruno. It's like, it really is. We're all very, very aware, yeah, of this kind of auditor crisis, I guess. And it's not just affecting Europe or the UK. It's a global crisis, and it really is, because we really need competent auditors. And in order to have competent auditors, we need to have competent food safety professionals and
Yeah.
individuals out, and there simply aren't enough of these competent food safety people. And those that are there, they're so very stretched, and it
Mm,
makes it very, very difficult for us then to try and find good auditors. And from this, and the good auditors, they're all, we're all getting older, and so unfortunately we're getting this bigger kind of, I guess, or this smaller pool of people that we can access for auditing. um, and like I said, this is affecting the entire industry, and it's something that we need to work on as an industry. And it's not just up to any one organization to do, to own that or deliver that. We need to work across all sectors and the globe. We need to work with GFSI and our competitors to figure that out. There is no silver bullet, but I think there's small steps. And, part of, our professional program, our performance enhancement department is about upskilling the industry. And we do have this ongoing program of trying to train our auditors and trying to make them better and try to get more people into the industry. But it is something that we need to look at. And yeah, you mentioned AI and so on. I mean, of course, all of that new technology can be considered. Can it help? Hopefully, but who knows? Yeah, we are embracing information communication technology, doing more blended audits, doing the remote audits and so on to try and reduce the time spent traveling for auditors. But there is no one answer. If you ever come across it, Bruno, will you please tell me? But
Of
I do
course.
think we can work together as a whole industry to try and solve this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
probably the key message, right? It's not alone. Nobody has a silver bullet. It's really a through collaboration that we
yeah,
can
and
try to solve that.
yeah, and I think just little steps, but little steps will get us there. It's like in next month I'm at the University of Bath Spa, just talking to their food technology undergrads about BRCGS and the food safety certification programs, and teaching them. There is this career called auditing because people aren't
Mhm.
necessarily aware of it when you're in school. So that's another area. We need to make graduates aware of it and make it a career, because it's
Mhm.
not something that people necessarily grow up saying, I want to be an auditor. They kind of say, I want to work in the food industry. So I think, I think if
Yeah,
we all collaborate, we're going to have to solve this because it's not going to go away.
yeah, you have to make it attractive and
Yeah,
recognize. I think the recognition of auditor is probably not what it should be.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
so I think we have been so we have explained everything, so nobody has any question, or I cannot see.
Okay.
Which is it's okay. If you have any question while viewing this webinar or in replay, please don't hesitate to put it as comment on the LinkedIn of the event. I'm sure that Angela and myself will be pleased to answer or to give some answers to your question. So thank you very much, Angela, for the time you gave us explaining all about BRCGS. Now we know it's not British Retail Consortium anymore.
It's not. Thank you very much, Bruno. Thank you
Yes,
very much. I really enjoyed it.
brands and compliance. So thank you all for listening and all watching this on replay. And see you soon for a next webinar. Bye bye,
Thank
Angela.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye. Good night.